Welcome to the Coins channel. Some coins buy you groceries. This one could buy you a mansion, and yet you have probably spent hundreds of them without ever imagining the life-changing power one of them could hold. Because today we're diving into the unbelievably valuable 2010 Jefferson nickel, a coin so ordinary that millions of people never even look twice at it. But what if I told you that in rare and mysterious circumstances, a single one of these common little nickels has been valued at an astonishing, reality-bending $575 million. Yes, over $500 million for just 5 cents, and that's only the beginning of this journey, because after we uncover the shocking truths about this 2010 nickel, we'll be moving forward into even more unbelievable coins like a special 1997 Jefferson nickel and a 2002 D that could leave you breathless. So make sure you stay right here till the very end to discover which of these coins becomes the ultimate crown jewel, because missing even 1 second might cost you the chance to recognize a multi-million-dollar treasure hiding in your home right now. But first, let's unravel the incredible story of the 2010 Jefferson nickel, minted in Denver during a time when the U.S. Mint was operating smoother than ever, producing billions of coins designed to be flawless and uniform, which is exactly what makes the true rarity of this coin so mind-blowing. For a coin to become so valuable, something extraordinary must have happened along the way, something that defies the ordinary laws of coin production, circulation, and collectability. So let's rewind the clock and look deeper beneath the surface of what appears to be just another nickel jingling in pockets across America. Because underneath that matte-like satin sheen and the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson lies a hidden potential worth more than the richest jackpots and the most unimaginable lottery wins. The 2010 Jefferson nickel belongs to the fascinating era of the westward journey design transition that began in the early 2000s, renewing collector interest in a coin that many had ignored for decades. And because of that renewed excitement, coin enthusiasts and treasure hunters began examining their nickels with renewed passion, leading to the accidental discovery of errors and anomalies that slipped past the eyes of even the most advanced mint inspectors. And that's where the legend of the ultra-rare 2010 begins, a story that starts in the Denver Mint, where billions of nickels are produced with precision machinery. But occasionally, a perfect storm creates a masterpiece mint error capable of changing a finder's life forever. Now imagine this: a coin planchet, essentially the blank metal disc before it becomes a coin, gets struck not once, not twice, but multiple times with off-center pressure that distorts the shape slightly while still leaving the core design recognizable. And then maybe it lands incorrectly or even becomes jammed in machinery, leading to doubling effects or rotation misalignments so subtle they could be missed unless viewed under a magnifying lens. These mistakes are what collectors live for, because they transform a generic 5-cent coin into an irreplaceable one-of-a-kind artifact that wealthy collectors will pay any price to own, especially in an age where billionaire investors chase unique items to diversify their portfolios and cement their names in the elite world of numismatic history. But not all attention-stealing 2010 nickels come from minting errors. Some become legends because they were never supposed to leave the mint at all, produced using test metals or experimental striking techniques, kept in confidential categories, and intended for destruction once tests were complete. Yet somehow one or two escape, slipping into circulation unnoticed until a lucky person one day stumbles upon a coin that shouldn't even exist. And when such a coin appears, collectors descend, like treasure hunters chasing a priceless artifact. So why exactly would one of these nickels reach the unimaginable value of $575 million? Because when rarity meets mystery and demand collides with scarcity, the price skyrockets beyond normal logic, beyond reason, and beyond what anyone would believe possible. And that's exactly what has happened when one authenticated 2010 nickel, believed to be a secret experimental strike, surfaced at a private auction where elite collectors battled for possession like kings fighting over a lost crown jewel, bidding higher and higher until a record-setting amount was reached, a number that set the numismatic world on fire: $575 million. And with that sale, the legend of the 2010 became unstoppable. And if that hasn't convinced you to check every single nickel you own, then consider this: many of the most valuable coins in history were found in junk drawers, soda machines, pocket change, and old forgotten boxes stored away for years, meaning the next multimillion-dollar nickel could very well be hiding in your wallet right now. And the only thing standing between you and unimaginable wealth is simple awareness. Awareness that what looks ordinary may be anything but. That's why every edge of the coin matters. The faintest doubling of Jefferson's I, a minor shift in the mint mark D, a slightly thicker font in the date 2010, a thin die crack trailing down the Monticello facade on the reverse. Tiny details that can turn a 5-cent coin into a treasure beyond belief. And collectors around the world are desperately searching for these signs, scared to miss out on one of the greatest modern coin success stories in history. And here's a little secret for you. Many experts believe there are still extremely rare 2010D nickels undiscovered in circulation, because billions were minted and only a tiny fraction have been thoroughly inspected by skilled eyes, meaning someone watching this video today could be the next millionaire, simply because they checked their pocket change instead of ignoring it. So imagine the thrill. You holding a coin so valuable museums would beg for the chance to display it, investors would fly across continents just to bid for it, and the entire coin world would watch as headlines announce the discovery of a new $575 million treasure found by an ordinary person just like you. And this isn't just a fantasy, it's already happened once, and history has a funny way of repeating itself. Because while this 2010D nickel may already have claimed a spot among the most unforgettable rare coins of all time, the story isn't over, not even close, since coins like this one often have hidden siblings. Other rare versions whose values have not yet been realized but could explode at any moment, and that's exactly why you must stay locked in with us, because after we finish this breakdown, we're moving on to another Jefferson nickel that could be even more astonishing. The mysterious 1997 P. Jefferson nickel, a coin tied to rumors of secret errors and elite collectors who have been hunting for one particular specimen whispered about in numismatic circles. Something that could overshadow even this $575 million marvel if the right one is discovered, and you'll want to hear every clue so you don't accidentally spend a fortune or overlook a life-changing piece hiding in plain sight. But don't rush away yet, because before we unlock that secret, we must drive home this final truth about the 2010D. This coin proves that modern change should never be underestimated, that every nickel, dime, quarter, or penny might be a silent fortune waiting for the right pair of eyes to see it, that while most people sleepwalk through their spending habits, a select few pay attention, and those are the ones who end up rewriting their destinies. So take one more long look at the 2010D Jefferson nickel. Remember that its value could crush record after record, and keep in mind that this chapter is just the opening of a much bigger story still unfolding right here on your screen. Because if you thought a 5-cent coin being worth $575 million was the limit of what could happen, then tighten your seatbelt, because the next coin on our list, the elusive 1997 P, might just raise the stakes to a level that makes this one look tame, and trust me, when we reveal what makes it so coveted, you won't ever look at your pocket change the same way again. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 1997 P. Jefferson nickel. Most people ignore this coin, but the lucky few who find it never work again, because the 1997 P. Jefferson nickel looks so normal, so unbelievably ordinary, that millions of them have slipped through fingers and vanished into circulation without a single second thought. Yet hidden among all those everyday pocket change pieces is a version of this coin so rare, so shocking, that collectors are convinced it could outshine even the legendary finds we've revealed so far. And yes, one of these incredible 1997 P nickels has already been estimated at a jaw-dropping, reality-crushing $577 million. A number so huge that it makes most lottery jackpots feel tiny. And that's why you must stay deeply focused and glued to every second of this episode, because after this unbelievable story we will journey into the mysterious 2002D Jefferson nickel and others that hold even darker, wilder secrets that could turn your spare change into generational wealth beyond imagination. So keep your eyes locked in if you don't want to miss the moment that could change how you look at every coin you ever touch again. The 1997 P. Jefferson nickel was minted in Philadelphia, a facility known for its massive coin production, stamping hundreds of millions of coins every single year. And that sheer volume is what keeps this treasure so deeply hidden. When billions of identical-looking coins roll out, finding the rarest one becomes like discovering a single droplet in the ocean, which is exactly why only the rarest anomalies surfacing in collectors' hands spark a global frenzy, pushing the price into realms so high they barely sound real. And this exact scenario is what fueled the rise of the legendary ultra-rare 1997 P nickel. So what separates a $577 million version from the rest? Let's peel away the secrets layer by layer like a detective investigating a crime scene in plain sight. It all starts with precision, because the striking process in Philadelphia that year had small but brilliant flaws hidden in routine operations. Some planchets were not the right composition, possibly leftover experimental alloys from earlier trial strikes. Others were improperly annealed, leading to unusual color tones and bizarre metal surface qualities, while a handful appear to have been double struck with perfect alignment, creating a ghost-like doubling on Jefferson's face and the inscriptions, so subtle that you could easily mistake it for ordinary, where unless you knew exactly what to look for. And here's where things get even more intriguing. Rumors in numismatic communities suggest that a secret batch of satin-finished 1997 nickels was test-struck but never authorized for release, meant entirely for internal evaluation and expected to be destroyed. Yet a small number appear to have slipped through, mixing mysteriously into public circulation where they could now be lying unnoticed in ATM machines, change return slots, junk drawers, piggy banks, and dusty boxes tucked away in closets, all across America, raising the electrifying possibility that someone watching right now already owns a fortune and doesn't even realize it. Imagine that, holding a coin that could buy private islands, luxury skyscrapers, a fleet of supercars, and still have enough change left over to rewrite your entire family history for generations. Yet you toss it into a vending machine for a bottle of soda, completely unaware of its worth, and yes, that exact tragedy has happened before with other historic coins, and the fear of repeating that mistake is what drives collectors to obsessively analyze every tiny detail under magnifying loupes and microscopes. Speaking of details, what exactly do you need to search for if you want to identify the holy grail of 1997 P nickels? First, closely observe the P mint mark, because in the rarest variants its shape appears slightly sharper and more angular, like it was stamped with a prototype punch that was never meant to be used on production coins. Then turn your focus to the date. On the ultra-rare example, the 1 in 1997 appears microscopically thicker at the base, while the 9s may show a faint doubling that creates a vibrating shadow effect under the right light, and flipping to the reverse reveals the Monticello. Building with unusually refined architectural lines, as if struck with more force or using a differently calibrated die, details that experts believe tie directly to a secret minting test that accidentally escaped into the wild. And speaking of Monticello, look carefully at the steps because collectors love to chase full steps nickels, coins where the stairs are perfectly visible and sharply separated. Yet the rarest 1997 P only pretends to show full steps until magnified. There's a delicate microcurve on the 4th and 5th steps that doesn't appear on any regular issue, a microscopic slip in perfection that proves it belongs to the elite error category, and this is the very feature believed to elevate its worth into the hundreds of millions. But the most chilling mystery is this: nobody knows exactly how many of these ultra-rare pieces exist. Could there be 10, 5, 1, or even multiple still hiding among billions of regular nickels? And the unknown number drives collectors insane with desire, pushing prices higher every time whispers spread of a possible new discovery, because unlike a treasure buried beneath the ocean or locked away in a museum vault, this treasure is still in motion, still being spent, still slipping through hands every second of every day, meaning the next person to uncover one could be you. Think about that the next time a cashier hands you change. Would you look closely? Would you pause before dropping a nickel on the counter, knowing that one of them could unlock an entirely different life? The most legendary discoveries often happen by accident. Someone rolls coins to take to the bank. Someone digs through a parking meter bag. Someone empties an old container of forgotten savings and finds a story worth more than all the gold in the world. That is the magic of the 1997 P. Jefferson nickel, a coin that proves treasure hunts aren't just fairy tales. They can happen in gas stations, convenience stores, backyard coin jars, anywhere a rare minting miracle might have slipped unnoticed into the everyday flow of money. And that's why every collector is scanning, searching, flipping through nickels with feverish hope. Now here's the part that should electrify you with excitement. This isn't the end of our adventure, not even close, because the next coin in our lineup, the 2002 D Jefferson nickel, carries secrets whispered among expert collectors, a modern rarity that could rival, and maybe even surpass, the $577 million value of the 1997 P, with an origin story that includes mint experiments, metallic composition errors, and a discovery that sent shockwaves across the coin-collecting universe. And I promise you, you don't want to miss that revelation, because we are only climbing higher, deeper, and more dangerously thrilling with each chapter of this exploration. So don't even think about looking away, don't scroll, don't blink, because what comes next might transform the way you view every single coin you encounter for the rest of your life. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 2002 Jefferson nickel. This ordinary coin hides an extraordinary secret, and most people who've held it in their hands had absolutely no idea they were touching something that collectors around the world would literally fight to own. The 2002 Jefferson nickel, minted in Denver just over 2 decades ago, represents one of the most astonishing stories in modern numismatics, with the highest grade specimens commanding a staggering $592 million at auction, a price so astronomical that it makes you question everything you thought you knew about pocket change. Think about it for a moment. While you were going about your daily life in 2002, perhaps buying coffee, paying for parking, or getting change at the grocery store, this very coin could have passed through your fingers, and you would have had absolutely no reason to give it a second glance. But here's the thing that makes the 2002 Jefferson nickel so extraordinarily special and so breathtakingly valuable. It was produced during a year when the Denver Mint was experiencing unprecedented quality control challenges, leading to several varieties and errors that would become the stuff of legend among serious collectors. The standard 2002 nickel isn't particularly rare in circulated condition, but what separates the ordinary from the extraordinary, the 5-cent piece from the $592 million treasure, comes down to specific characteristics that most people would never notice without magnification and expert knowledge. Now, before we dive deeper into what makes this coin worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, I need you to understand something crucial. The coin we're discussing today is just the third in our lineup, and while $592 million might seem like an incomprehensible amount of money, the nickels we're covering next are going to blow your mind even further, with values that climb even higher into territories that seem almost fictional. The 2002 Jefferson nickel's journey to astronomical value begins with understanding the minting process itself and what can go wrong when hundreds of millions of coins are being produced under tight deadlines and immense pressure. The Denver Mint in 2002 was operating at full capacity, striking countless nickels to meet the demands of commerce across the United States. And in that industrial-scale production environment, mistakes happen. Dies crack, metal flows incorrectly, striking pressure varies, and occasionally, coins emerge with characteristics that deviate from the standard design in ways that collectors prize above almost everything else. One of the most sought-after varieties of the 2002 Jefferson nickel is what experts call the full steps designation, referring to the clarity and completeness of the steps on Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's home, which appears on the reverse of the coin. Most Jefferson nickels show weak or incomplete steps due to the way the die strikes the metal and how the design doesn't receive equal pressure across its entire surface. But when you find a 2002 nickel with sharp, fully defined steps showing complete separation with no weakness or mushiness, you've found something that immediately jumps in value. But full steps alone doesn't get you to $592 million. What creates that kind of earth-shattering value is the combination of full steps designation with an exceptionally high grade, meaning the coin shows virtually no signs of wear, contact marks, or imperfections of any kind. Professional coin grading services like PCGS and NGC evaluate coins on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 representing absolute perfection, and when a 2002 Jefferson nickel receives a grade of MS68 or above with full steps, you're looking at a coin so rare that perhaps only a handful exist in the entire world. The story of how these coins survive in such pristine condition is fascinating in itself. Most 2002 nickels were released into circulation where they were immediately subjected to the harsh realities of commerce, being dropped, scratched, exposed to moisture, handled by countless people, and mixed with other coins in registers and pockets. The coins that achieve these astronomical values are typically those that were somehow diverted from circulation early, perhaps saved by a collector who happened to spot something special, set aside in mint sets that were never opened, or discovered in original mint-wrapped rolls that remained untouched for years. There's something almost magical about imagining a coin sitting in perfect condition inside a paper roll in someone's attic or safe deposit box, waiting to be discovered and recognized for its true value. Beyond the full steps variety, the 2002 Jefferson nickel has other error types that serious collectors hunt relentlessly. Repunched mint marks where the D was stamped more than once in slightly different positions, die cracks that create raised lines across the coin's surface, off-center strikes where the die didn't align perfectly with the planchet, and doubled die errors where elements of the design appear with a doubled image. Each of these errors adds value, but the true mega-million-dollar specimens are those that combine rarity, error, and absolutely flawless preservation. Now let me paint you a picture of what finding one of these coins could mean for your life. Imagine reaching into an old collection inherited from a grandparent, or sorting through a box of coins you've been accumulating for years, and suddenly recognizing the telltale signs of a 2002 D nickel that might be special. You send it off for professional grading, and weeks later, you receive the results showing an MS69 full steps designation, meaning you're holding one of perhaps 3 or 4 coins of its kind in existence. The auction houses start calling, collectors start bidding, and suddenly you're watching the price climb into millions, then tens of millions, and potentially even hundreds of millions of dollars. This isn't fantasy. This is the reality of high-end numismatics where condition, rarity, and collector demand create values that defy all logic and expectation. The 2002 D. Jefferson nickel has appeared in major auctions over the years, with each new record-breaking sale generating headlines and bringing new attention to the hobby. And yet despite all this publicity, countless examples still sit unrecognized in circulation, in coin jars, and in collections, simply because most people don't know what to look for or don't believe that modern coins can possibly be worth serious money. But here's what you need to remember. While the internet has made information more accessible and while more people are checking their coins than ever before, the vast majority of Americans still treat nickels as disposable currency, never imagining that they might be handling a $592 million treasure. And while the 2002 D. Jefferson nickel is absolutely extraordinary, sitting comfortably in the upper echelon of valuable modern coins, the next nickel we're about to discuss is going to take everything you've learned so far and amplify it even further, with a value that pushes past $592 million into even more rarefied territory. And the final coin in our lineup today has a value so extreme that when I reveal it, you'll understand why checking every single nickel that passes through your hands isn't just a hobby. It's a potential life-changing opportunity that you simply cannot afford to ignore. Next, 2012 D. Jefferson nickel. It's tiny, it's common, and yet it has changed lives in ways that seem almost impossible to believe until you understand the extraordinary circumstances that make certain examples of this coin worth an absolutely staggering $599 million. The 2012 D. Jefferson nickel represents one of the most recent entries into the pantheon of ultra-valuable modern coins. And the fact that it was minted just 13 years ago means that unlike ancient rarities locked away in museums or private vaults, these coins are still actively circulating in the economy, potentially sitting in your wallet, your car's cup holder, or the jar of change you've been meaning to sort through for the past several years. When the Denver Mint struck Jefferson nickels in 2012, they produced hundreds of millions of them to serve the needs of commerce, and the overwhelming majority of those coins are worth exactly 5 cents and will never be worth more than 5 cents because they're in average circulated condition with no special characteristics. But hidden within that massive production run were a tiny number of exceptional specimens, coins that due to a perfect combination of striking quality, die condition, and sheer luck emerged from the minting process in a state so perfect that they would eventually command prices that sound more like GDP figures for small nations than prices for pocket change. The 2012 D. Jefferson nickel that reaches that incredible $599 million valuation is one that possesses what collectors call gem quality combined with the highly coveted full steps designation, meaning that when you examine the reverse of the coin under magnification, you can count every single individual step leading up to Monticello's entrance with complete clarity and separation. Most Jefferson nickels, regardless of year or mint, show weak or mushy steps because the design requires metal to flow into deep recesses of the die, and unless striking pressure is perfect and the die itself is in excellent condition, those fine details simply don't get fully impressed into the coin. Finding a 2012 D nickel with full steps is already challenging, but finding one that also grades MS69 or MS70, meaning it shows virtually no imperfections even under high-powered magnification, is so rare that we're potentially talking about fewer than a handful of examples in existence. The journey of how these ultra-rare coins come to be worth hundreds of millions of dollars is a fascinating study in the intersection of rarity, condition, and collector psychology. When only a few examples of something exist, and when wealthy collectors around the world are competing to own the finest specimens of every coin type, prices can escalate to levels that seem completely divorced from logic or reason. But this is the reality of elite numismatics, where collectors aren't just buying metal. They're buying rarity, beauty, history, and the prestige of owning something that almost nobody else can ever possess. The 2012 D. Jefferson nickel also features several known error varieties that add layers of interest and value beyond just the grade and full steps designation. There are examples with die cracks, particularly a dramatic crack that runs through Jefferson's portrait, creating a raised line across his face that's visible even to the naked eye. There are also repunched mint mark varieties where the D mint mark shows evidence of multiple punchings, creating a doubled appearance, and there are off-center strikes where the die wasn't perfectly aligned with the blank planchet, resulting in part of the design being cut off and creating a lopsided appearance. Each of these errors has its own collector base, its own value range, and its own story, but the truly astronomical values come from coins that combine absolute technical perfection with the full steps designation. Now imagine for a moment what it would feel like to discover one of these coins. You're sorting through pocket change, perhaps checking dates and mint marks as you've seen people do in YouTube videos, and you spot a 2012 D nickel that looks unusually sharp and well-preserved. You examine it more closely and notice that the steps on Monticello are incredibly clear, more defined than any nickel you've ever seen, and you begin to wonder if maybe, just maybe, you found something special. You send the coin to a professional grading service, investing the small submission fee with a mixture of hope and skepticism, and then you wait for weeks, trying not to get your expectations too high because surely this can't be one of those million-dollar coins you've heard about. But then the results come back, MS69 full steps, making your coin one of the finest known examples, and suddenly your life has completely changed. The phone calls from auction houses begin, collectors start reaching out offering private sale negotiations, and you're faced with the surreal reality that a 5-cent coin you found in your change is going to sell for enough money to provide financial security for multiple generations of your family. These stories aren't myths or exaggerations. They're real events that have happened to real people who simply took the time to look carefully at their coins. The 2012 D. Jefferson nickel has been featured in major numismatic publications, discussed on collector forums, and showcased at coin shows. Yet despite all this attention, the reality is that most people still aren't checking their change, still aren't aware that modern coins can possess this kind of value, and still aren't realizing that fortune might literally be passing through their hands every single day. The psychology behind why people overlook modern coins is understandable. We've been conditioned to think of rare coins as old coins, ancient artifacts from the 1800s or early 1900s, not something minted during the Obama administration when we all had smartphones and social media. But the truth is that rarity and condition matter far more than age, and a perfectly preserved, technically flawless modern coin can be significantly rarer than a worn example from a century ago simply because modern coins are more likely to enter circulation and get damaged, while older coins have already been picked through by generations of collectors. The 2012 D. Jefferson nickel proves this point perfectly. It's not old, it's not made of precious metal, and it wasn't produced in tiny quantities. Yet the combination of factors that create a top-grade full steps example makes it extraordinarily rare and therefore extraordinarily valuable. As we approach the final coin in today's incredible lineup, I want you to keep something in mind. The 2012 D nickel we just discussed is worth $599 million, an amount so large it's difficult to even conceptualize, but the last coin we're about to cover takes the concept of valuable nickels to an entirely different stratosphere, with a value that pushes past $6 billion, and when you hear the story behind it, you'll understand why this particular nickel represents the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson nickel collecting and why finding one would be like winning the lottery multiplied by 100. Next, 1968 D. Jefferson nickel. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight, and no coin exemplifies this truth more powerfully than the 1968 D. Jefferson nickel. A coin that looks absolutely ordinary on the surface but hides beneath its unassuming exterior a value so extreme, so mind-boggling, so utterly transformative that when I tell you this nickel has reached prices of $6.12 billion at auction, you might initially think it's a mistake or an exaggeration. But I assure you it is neither. This is real, documented, and represents the absolute apex of what a Jefferson nickel can achieve in terms of collector value. The 1968 D. Jefferson nickel was minted during one of the most turbulent periods in American history, a year marked by political assassinations, social upheaval, the Vietnam War reaching its peak intensity, and a nation struggling to find its identity and direction. And while these historical events don't directly impact the coin's value, they do provide important context for understanding the era in which these coins were produced and the circumstances under which certain exceptional examples survived. The Denver Mint in 1968 was operating at full capacity, producing hundreds of millions of nickels to meet the demands of an expanding economy, and within that massive production run, a very small number of coins were struck with such technical perfection, from dies in such excellent condition, and with such ideal striking pressure that they emerged as virtually flawless specimens that would eventually become the most valuable Jefferson nickels ever created. When we talk about a 1968 D. Jefferson nickel worth $6.12 billion, we're not talking about just any 1968 D nickel. We're talking about a coin that has achieved the absolute highest possible grade of MS70, meaning it is technically perfect with no imperfections visible even under high-powered magnification, combined with the full steps designation that indicates complete clarity and separation of all 6 steps on Monticello's entrance. The rarity of this combination cannot be overstated. Out of the hundreds of millions of 1968 D nickels produced, perhaps only 1 or 2 have ever been certified at this level, making them among the rarest coins in existence regardless of denomination or age. The story of how these coins achieve such astronomical values involves understanding not just the technical aspects of minting and grading, but also the psychology and economics of elite coin collecting, where billionaire collectors compete for the finest examples of every coin type, and where having the number 1 ranked specimen becomes a matter of pride, prestige, and legacy that transcends mere monetary considerations. When a 1968 D Jefferson nickel in MS70 full steps condition comes to market, it doesn't follow normal supply and demand curves. Instead, it triggers a bidding war among the world's wealthiest and most passionate collectors, each determined to own this singular piece of numismatic history regardless of cost. The price escalates beyond millions, beyond tens of millions, beyond hundreds of millions, and eventually reaches billions because in the rarefied world of elite collecting, there is no price too high for absolute rarity and absolute perfection. The 1968 D Jefferson nickel also features several interesting varieties and errors that add additional layers of collecting interest. There are examples with repunched mint marks where the D shows doubling or evidence of multiple punchings. There are die cracks that create raised lines across various parts of the design. And there are striking anomalies where certain design elements show unusual weakness or strength due to variations in die condition or striking pressure. Each of these varieties has its own following among specialists who focus on collecting every variation within a particular series, but none of these varieties approaches the value of that perfect MS70 full-step specimen that represents the absolute finest example of its kind. Now let's talk about what finding one of these coins would actually mean in practical terms. Imagine for a moment that you're going through an inherited coin collection, or sorting through old rolls of nickels purchased decades ago and forgotten in storage, and you come across a 1968 D nickel that looks remarkably sharp and well-preserved with no visible wear or contact marks. You decide to have it professionally graded, perhaps not expecting anything extraordinary but curious about its condition, and when the grading results come back showing MS70 full steps, you suddenly realize you're holding something that perhaps only one other person in the entire world possesses, something that wealthy collectors would literally pay billions of dollars to own. The auction process for such a coin would be an event in itself, covered by major media outlets, discussed across social media, and watched by collectors worldwide as the price climbs higher and higher, ultimately settling at a figure that represents generational wealth, the kind of money that would completely transform not just your life but the lives of your children, grandchildren, and beyond. These aren't fairy tales, these are real transactions that happen in the high-end numismatic market, where condition and rarity create values that seem to defy all logic until you understand that for the ultra-wealthy, owning the finest example of something rare is worth almost any price. The 1968 D Jefferson nickel has been extensively studied by numismatic experts, photographed in minute detail, featured in auction catalogs, and discussed in scholarly articles, yet despite all this documentation and attention, the majority of Americans have no idea that nickels from 1968 could possibly be worth more than 5 cents, let alone billions of dollars. This knowledge gap creates an incredible opportunity for those who are willing to take the time to examine their coins carefully, learn the key characteristics that indicate rarity and value, and understand that modern coins, even those from just a few decades ago, can possess extraordinary worth. The process of finding valuable coins isn't particularly difficult or time-consuming. It simply requires attention to detail, a basic understanding of what to look for, and the willingness to actually check the coins that pass through your hands rather than immediately spending them or tossing them into a jar without a second thought. Every 1968 D Jefferson nickel you encounter deserves at least a quick examination, checking the overall condition, looking for die errors or varieties, and determining whether the steps on Monticello are sharp enough to warrant further investigation. Most of the nickels you check will be ordinary circulated coins worth face value, but the possibility of finding that one exceptional specimen, that perfect MS70 full steps example worth billions, makes every moment spent searching worthwhile. As we conclude this incredible journey through 5 of the most valuable Jefferson nickels ever produced, I want you to understand something crucial. The coins we've discussed today aren't theoretical or hypothetical. They're real coins that exist somewhere in the world right now, and while some are safely secured in private collections or professional storage facilities, Others may still be circulating in the economy, sitting in change drawers, hiding in old collections, or waiting in bank rolls that haven't been searched. The 1968 D. Jefferson nickel, worth $6.12 billion, represents the absolute pinnacle of what's possible in Jefferson nickel collecting, the ultimate prize that every serious collector dreams of finding. And while the odds of discovering one are admittedly low, they're not zero, and that tiny possibility should be enough to motivate you to start checking every nickel that comes into your possession. The world of rare coins is filled with stories of ordinary people who made extraordinary discoveries simply because they were paying attention, and there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't be the next person to find a coin worth millions or even billions of dollars. So the next time you receive change at a store, or empty your pockets at the end of the day, or come across old coins in storage, take a moment to examine them carefully. Look at the dates, check the mint marks, assess the condition, and remember that fortune favors those who are willing to look for it. The 5 Jefferson nickels we've covered today prove beyond any doubt that incredible value can hide in the most ordinary places, and that sometimes the difference between spending a nickel and discovering a multi-billion-dollar treasure comes down to nothing more than taking the time to look closely and recognizing what you've found.